Everybody, we are going to continue from last night, and where's Daniel? I hope he's aware that there's a share tonight. I sent out a little handout before, and before we continue in the Shulchan Aruch, I just want to cover some of the things that are in that handout. Somebody asked last night about melting ice with fire. If that should be considered a malacha of Bishul, because you're changing something hard to be soft. Now, of course, if you heat it up to the extent that it's yad siletis boy, well, that's regular cooking. That's not a question. The question is, if you heat it up to the point that it melts, so you took something hard, which is ice, and you made it soft. Yes, question.
Why you melted ice?
Because you want water, you don't want ice.
You have no water, you have a desert.
As they say in Yiddish, akasha of a maisa. You know what that means?
Okay.
You're asking a question on the story. That's the story.
Ashkenazim are not allowed to melt ice.
Ashkenazim are not allowed to melt ice, but that's not a deraisa. That's a derabanan of moilid. It's a derabanan, correct.
So the whole question here is for start.
No, the question is for Ashkenazim. Why is it not an issa deraisa? Why is it only an issa derabanan? I'm not talking about in room temperature. Room temperature, there's no heat. You know what I'm saying? So it's understood that there's no bishul, right? I'm talking about using the heat of fire to melt ice.
I have another question.
But you don't let it heat the yatz lettuce, but you just melt it. So why is that not bishul? Because you're softening something hard. Understand the question? It's a question.
Meaning, why? For sure, it's a derabanan.
For Ashkenazim, it's an issa derabanan.
Why isn't it a deraisa?
Correct. That's correct.
So I'm going. You have ice. You put it in the water. You melt it too.
That's correct.
Is this the shela?
No.
No, it's the hot. Put it in the hot.
I'm only talking about if you heat it with water. If you heat it with heat, with fire.
So to put it in
water
is okay?
To put it in water is okay even for Ashkenazim because the water gets absorbed into the other water. So you never see anything separate that you created. It goes right away into something else. You understand?
I want to see the big ice and it's getting small.
Yeah, but what it creates, you don't see. You see it's getting smaller, but the ice, the water that is created from that never is a separate thing. It goes right away into the other water. So, a few answers are given to this. One svara is from Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, which I said last night as if it was just a fact, but I kind of made it up. And it's not so clear, but it's an answer that Reb Shlomo Zalman gives. Reb Shlomo Zalman says that when it comes to the definition of cooking for softening hard things or hardening soft things, right, as opposed to the regular definition of cooking is making food edible through the heat of fire. That's the regular definition, right? I mean, maybe if it's liquid, it's not making it edible, it's making it hot. You understand? Or if it's already edible, because it's edible raw, it's changing its flavor, whatever, something like that, or making it cooked, let's say. But generally, it's about cooking food from raw to cooked. When it comes to the definition of bishul as merape guf kasha, as softening a hard item, so that's only if the only way you can soften it is through the heat of fire. If you can soften it another way, then even if you use fire, it's not considered bishul. Understand? Because it's not a significant change in it.
So ice you just could have left.
Exactly. Because you could have left it to melt on its own. Even if you use fire, that's not called bishul. Now this is different, by the way, than cooking. Because when it comes to cooking, we don't say, well, you could have cooked in the sun. Oh, so now cooking with fire is okay. You could have cooked it by salting it, by pickling it, by all kinds of other cooking that is not cooking with the araisa. So now you can cook it with fire. No, it doesn't work that way. Cooking regular for the purpose of eating is cooking even if you could have done it another way. But this specific kind of cooking, because it's not mamish such a great change, it's only significant if it can only be accomplished with fire. That's Rosh Zalman's chiddush. Another answer is, and this is an interesting one. Here, metal, wax, because those things were originally solid. That's Bishul, to soften metal, like when you want to form it or something. So you melt it like in a, the smiths, whatever the smiths do. What is it called? Their furnaces, the furnace. So that's a significant change because it was always solid. It started off as a solid. Metal is a solid. I mean, maybe in the earth it was liquid, I'm saying, when it was forming as part of the earth's core, or however it came to be. But as metal, it was always a solid. And now you're changing it and making it liquid. That's a chiddush. Whereas ice was originally water, and you're just changing it back to being water. So that's not a significant change.
Like Jello.
What about Jello?
So if you leave it out, it wouldn't change in shape. But if you put it under fire, then it would. So then that would.
According to this answer, it would also not be Bishul, because it was originally liquid, right? Oh, you mean because as Jello it was always a solid? Is that what you mean?
Exactly.
As Jello it was always a solid. That could be. That's a svara. That's a svara. Because when it was liquid before, it wasn't Jello, it was water. Now it got a
It
new.
goes into a cooling hard.
Right.
It's hard. So
Yeah.
you don't speed it up, but
Could be. I mean, it could be, although according to the first verse of Zalman, I don't know, would it not happen without heat? It wouldn't melt without heat, probably.
It would a little bit. I'm just saying, as an example, there's like this fish that I know they make that it's a very jelly fish, and then if you leave it out, it will start moistening up a little bit. It'll lose its content of its hardness, but it won't become water.
Right. Could be a shaila. Could be a shaila if you're heating it through fire. If you're heating it through fire. But there's other answers which, according to them, maybe it will not apply, as we're going to see. But according to these two answers, then maybe it's a shaila. The poskim say it, by the way, about butter, for example. That butter, because as butter, it was always a solid. Even though it came from milk, then it was a liquid. But when it formed and it became butter, which is what it now is, an entity called butter, a new existence called butter. So as that, it was always a solid. So therefore, the opinions that hold, I mean, we're going to see later, but the opinions that hold that you could be chayav for softening of food might hold that softening butter with fire would be a problem.
So, Rabbi, if you go to Alaska all the time, it's ice over there. So, what about this melted?
I don't think it was ice from Sheshis and Bereshis.
It's all the time freezing, all the way up north. If you go where it's freezing all the time.
Yeah, but even in the summer?
In the summer too, also, far away.
In the summer, it starts to melt, and then it back and forth. You know what I mean? It's a cycle.
But still, ice stay all the year.
Some of it stays all the year.
So some of it, if you take it, it will be melted. This kasha also.
You think maybe it was from Sheshis and Bereshis? Ice?
Who knows?
I don't know. I don't know. According to this answer, maybe. I don't know if there's any way of knowing, but according to this answer, maybe.
Together. Because I don't see any class.
I don't know if we need it.
Yes. He'd like to sit in the middle. I know that.
I don't know. Okay, there are some opinions that the whole idea of merape guf kasha or maksha guf rach, that this whole concept of changing the consistency of something, and that is considered bishul, does not apply to foods. Only applies to non-foods. Meaning to say, when it comes to food, I mean, who cares? It's hard, it's soft. Those things are secondary. Because the main thing about food is to make it edible, which is to cook it, to change it from hard to soft is not important for food. What's for metal, which you don't eat, so you need it for use. So when it's soft, you can use it in a different way than when it's hard, right? You can shape it. Clay, you can use it in a different way when it's hard than when it's soft, because it becomes a utensil. So for that, it's significant. But for food, let's say bread. This is the classic example, by the way, of maksha guf rach for oichlin. The classic example is to toast bread. You take a nice soft piece of bread and you toast it. Now, putting it in an oven or a toaster is a shayla. Anyway, you can't put it down. Let's say you put it opposite a fireplace, a place, whatever, on Shabbat.
You could toast it?
That's what I'm discussing right now.
Okay.
If you toast bread, again, not in an oven, not directly over a fire, because then you might stoke it, but next to a fire. Next to a fire. The fire's here. Put the toast here. And you're going to leave it there till it toasts. You're maksha gufrach. You're hardening a soft substance. So again, there are poskim who say it's asr, actually. But there are some poskim who say, no, the whole concept of maksha gufrach and merape guf kosha, of softening hard things and hardening soft things, does not apply to food, because the change from hard to soft for food, that's not the main thing. The main thing is to eat the food. Hard, soft, doesn't really make a difference. So that's another svara that would allow it. I am explaining what we learned yesterday, which was, I think, Siv Zayin, about merape guf kosha and maksha guf rach. Okay, now, here comes another answer within that same answer, more or less. And that is as follows. Listen carefully. Even if we say that oichlin could have the problem of merape guf kosher, maksha guf rach, softening or hardening, even if you say that you could have that problem, that's only if it's not cooked or baked. If it is already, then you have the svara of ein bishul achar bishul, or ein afia achar afia. Meaning to say, if you would take a raw food that was soft and harden it through fire, maybe that would be a problem. But if you take a food that's already baked, except that it's soft, and you harden it through fire, well, then we apply the concept of ein bishul achar bishul.
So toasting bread shouldn't be a problem.
Exactly. Toasting bread should not be a problem. According to these two answers, toasting bread should not be a problem. Either because it doesn't apply to bread, or because even if it doesn't apply to food, or even if it applies to food, it doesn't apply to food that was already cooked or baked. Following the general concept of ein bishul achar bishul.
Can you even start those two?
I'm sorry?
It's okay to connect those two elements.
That's a machlokes. If there's bishul achar afia or afia after bishul, it's machlokes.
There's?
If there's bishul after afia or afia after bishul, is that your question?
No.
What's your question?
My question is if there's, we were saying the first side to be, can we lenient would be that it doesn't apply to food.
In general, yeah.
Bishul, like
That type of bishul, that definition of bishul.
and then Ein Afiacha.
Right. Can you serve them? Yeah. In this case, it would apply to both.
That Bishul Klal is also
Yeah,
also
for sure.
plastic wrap.
Yeah, absolutely. Ain't afiyah or afiyah. Absolutely.
No, yeah, Ein Afiacha would be a plastic wrap, but the first rule of the Bishul now applying to things
Yeah.
of food content.
Yeah, any food. Any food. Yeah. Now, according to this, by the way, we also understand why you're allowed to dissolve sugar in a klisheni.
It's melted, yes.
Exactly. Why is it not a problem that you're taking sugar which has a hard consistency? I mean, it's not hard, but it's, it's a solid, and you're changing its consistency through the heat of the klisheni, and you're melting it. And klisheni, we know, does cook some things, right? Or kaleha bishul are things that are easy to cook. They're cooking a klisheni. So how do you know that this is not called cooking? Just the fact that you're softening it and making it liquid. Well, according to all the, I mean, we have different answers according to these different answers. The first answer would say, well, you could also liquefy it in cold water, right? So therefore, even if you do it in hot water, it's not significant. And the third answer would say it doesn't apply to food. And the fourth answer would say, that depends. I was going to say ein bishul acha bishul, but it depends, because there's a machlekes if it becomes liquid, and then yesh bishul acha bishul balach. So that depends on those opinions.
Tanuk Shabbat.
But at least according to the first and the third answer, you're okay. Either because it could be done in a liquid, or because it is a food. Doesn't apply to foods. Sugar you can put in a klisheni. I'm sorry? Sugar you can put in a klisheni. We'll learn about it, but it's clear that you can put sugar in a klisheni. There's different reasons why. Different reasons why, but if you look in the Alter Rebbe's Siddur, he tells you to be careful not to be ma'ara from a kli rishon onto sugar. Look at the Siddur, and it's printed in the back of the Shulchan Aruch also, in the Hilchos Arab to L'Shamsa. So the mashmos is that it's only here from kli rishon that's the problem, and kli sheni is okay. There's different reasons why. Okay, we continue a little bit with still just finishing up from yesterday. I mentioned yesterday about cooking with an electrical current. Exactly. So I came across a little story in the Sefer, it's called Shulchan Shlomo, where they collect the different teachings of Shlomo Zalman on Hilchos Shabbos and they put it together. Anyway, so Shlomo Zalman once discussed the following shaila with the Chazon Ish. It was a similar shaila as the bread, but with water, where they put two electrodes into the water, and the water connected it and made a current of electricity. And that heated up the water, but the actual electrodes didn't get hot. So there's no hot metal. It was just the electric current cooking the water.
Like a microwave.
Kind of like a microwave, yeah. So he asked the Chazon Ish, he said, perhaps this should only be Bishul Midrabanan, like told us Chama. So there's no fire. So the Chazon Ish said that since electricity is generally fire, I mean, at least that's the way the Chazon Ish understood it at that point. So when electricity heats up in a way that's not fire, it's like the tulda of electricity. It's like the tulda of fire. Anyway, Shlomo Zalman writes, Yaldus Hoisabi, that I acted like a child, and he asked upon him, and I was chutzpahdik towards the Chazon Ish. And I said, a svara like that can only be said by one of the Rishonim. like to make, it's kind of like a made-up swara, like electricity is fire, and this is a tolda of fire. Anyway, the Chazon Ish held his ground, and he said, no, you don't have to be the Rashba. That's the svara. It's clear to me, and whatever. Anyway, but Rav Shlomo Zalman says, nevertheless, after all, it's not clear to him, and he kind of disagrees, even though it's hard to disagree with Chazon Ish, but at least in thinking, he disagrees. That, electricity is fire. Electricity can be used for 1,000 things. And one of the things it can be used for is to create a fire. So, but to say that that's the mahus of electricity, that's what it is, and therefore the heat of it is considered a tolda of it, is a difficult svar. It is a chiddush. So that
This whole svara was electricity. That's on there, right?
no, that's a separate thing.
Right, but even that he's saying that the Isser is not the havara. It's not creating a fire.
I understand that.
Well,
Because-
more so shouldn't he say that?
because of
electricity is fire.
He says because electricity is usually used to create a fire, so when you create heat through it, it's considered a tulda of fire. But when you're using it to, make a fan go or a refrigerator, that's not actually creating a fire. And there's no heat, so it can't be a tulda of fire either. You see what I'm saying? There he uses the concept of boina because that item is not complete until the circuit is complete, and therefore you're completing the item. But the water is obviously it's not an electrical utensil that is completed by, the whole concept of boina doesn't apply to water, obviously. It's not made for that. It's not, you know what I'm saying? So boina doesn't apply there, obviously. Okay, so I just thought that was interesting. Another point, also continuing from yesterday, and this is an interesting point. Bishul achar bishul of chama.
Of what?
Of chama. If you cooked something in the sun, is there bishul achar bishul with that item or not? Meaning to say, you have water that was heated in your dud shemesh, in your solar panels.
But the second issue of where it's going to be also in the chama? Or?
No, not in the cham. Now you want to put it into your cholent. You want to put it into your cholent. It's already cooked. And bishul achar bishul.
You don't want to do that, Rabbi.
It actually has to be hot.
Let's say it's hot.
You don't want to do that, Rabbi.
Let's say it's hot.
It's all rusted.
Okay. In theory, let's say you have a clean one, mamish, fresh from the factory, perfect.
Dry item,
Sorry?
dry item.
No, wet, but still hot. I'm saying it's still hot. Well, it could be a dry item. It's the same shaila. Same question if it's a dry item, even if it's cold. Same shaila. So it's basically a suffix that the Pri Megadim has, the Minchas Chinuch has. They don't have a clarity about it. And it's honestly, it seems to be relating to something we mentioned yesterday in terms of understanding why chama is not, why cooking with the sun is not considered cooking. If you say ein bishul, ein derech bishul v'kach means that it's just not, it's not the normal way to cook. It's not the normal way to cook means it's cooking, but it's not normal. It's not a normal way to cook. That means that really it is cooking. But because it's not normal, so it's not midaraisa. But in terms of the physical aspects of it, it's cooking. So therefore, it would be ein bishul achar bishul. But if you understand it the way we said yesterday, perhaps it means because it's so different than the way it was done in the Mishkan, it's not considered cooking. So then, exactly, it's too different than the Mishkan. So then maybe it's a different type of cooking. And maybe for that different type of cooking, maybe there is bishul after that different type of cooking.
So basically, to be able to have the concept bishul bishul from something hot to add it back, it's have to be heated by a fire.
Correct. Lamaisa, yes.
Over there, bishul.
Lamaisa, yes. Because it's a suffix, there's no clarity. It has to be heated with fire, correct. Certainly, by the
So
way,
since it was hot but not through a fire, you can just
put back on the fire, even if it's
Yeah.
much harder than the fire itself.
Yeah, if it was heated by something other than fire, the sun or toldos chama. Certainly, by the way, it says this certainly about maliach kireseach, for example, and kavush kamavush. In basa b'chala, we have the concept that something salted, very salted, has the halacha of something hot, or for that matter, something that is soaked, pickled for 24 hours, or even less, in vinegar, can be considered cooked. So, but that whole concept, that whole getter, that whole definition of cooking is different than the Shabbos kind of cooking, and therefore, it definitely the place can say if you heat something that was cooked through pickling, so to speak, or through salting, that is definitely yesh bishul achar, that kind of bishul, right? Because that's not the same kind of bishul as cooking with heat. All right.
Why is the emphasis like more like
I'm sorry?
if the food is cooked, doesn't matter which way.
No.
The concept that the food is cooked.
No.
On the food,
If it's cooked with heat, then maybe. But if it's cooked with other things besides heat, it's a different kind of cooking.
But it's still cooked in the same way like fire.
No, different. It's different.
Let's say you bake potatoes. You bake potato in the sun, you bake potato on the fire.
Sun, yes, but I'm talking about not sun. I'm talking about pickling them. So it has some halachas like cooking. That's a machlekes. That's a machlekes. If you say that because it's the heat of the sun, it's different or not. That's a doubt. No, that's also a doubt. Because Tolas Chama is not Medaraisa. Tolas Chama is only Rabbanan. So it's not real Bishul Medaraisa. So it's the same doubt.
So it's more important the action, not like what's happening in the food. Because if it's visual, who cares how it's been cooked? The food is cooked. If I'm talking about the words visual, it's related to the food.
It's a suffix. It's a suffix. That's a question. That's not resolved. But it could be that it has to be the action. The person did what is considered bishul by the Torah, or it could be no. It could be that it's the same bishul, and therefore, even though it was not defined as bishul by the Torah, because it's the same thing with heat, then it's the same. It's a question that's not resolved.
So we said we learned the concept on the platter. It's not there bishul, correct? People don't cook for the general.
Whoa. That's not for the definition of Bishul Midaraisa. That's for the definition of Mechzik Mavashal. Will it look like cooking? When you put it on the plata, and maybe it looks like you're doing an act of cooking, maybe not, because people don't cook there, but it is actually cooking. If you put something raw on the plata, that is cooking Midaraisa, no question about it. That's not correct. That is absolutely derech bishul de'oraisa. It doesn't look, doesn't make a difference. Cooking with the heat of fire, which the element in there is considered fire, whether you do it upside down from the roof on the whatever building, under the sea, that's all cooking. It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't look like cooking. Because people see, they say, well, that's not how people cook. People only use it for reheating. So when it comes to an Isser D'Rabbanan of Mechzik Mavashal, that it looks like cooking, we say, no, it doesn't look like cooking. You understand? But if you're actually cooking, of course it's cooking.
There's fire.
There is fire underneath, yeah. The element is considered fire, yeah.
Example with the cold place, like the radiators for the hot to warm up the house, and maybe you cook something on it, and take this and add it.
Also Midaraisa.
People can see the visual.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, not from the Rabbanan purposes. It doesn't look like it, but it is it.
Wouldn't be there.
Bishul. I'm just thinking, actually, talking about electricity conducting cooking food. They have these cooktops now that the cooktops actually don't get hot.
Right.
So it's just the electricity going into the food.
How's that?
Yeah, but that wasn't, didn't we talk about
What-
the
what
Basar
makes
Apollo,
the
but it wasn't the,
I don't know.
What are they saying?
They have cooktops that don't get hot.
yeah,
No, it's, but
It's
you
a
have to use
different-
special pots for it also.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, but
We
there's
talked about that.
no hot metal.
If you could put regular pot, it won't get, nothing will happen.
Okay, but there's no hot metal.
So it's like a microwave? What's
Magnetic?
It must be something like that. I don't know exactly.
It's for translate. Put your hand, nothing will happen.
Yeah.
It's specific, if it is all set of dishes.
Never seen it.
What is it called? Do you know what it's called?
Yeah, my friend have it in his house.
And they put to get that, right?
Yeah, when you put the right pot on it, yes, no problem. You're gonna be able to cook. But if you put your hands, nothing will happen.
Interesting.
There is hot metal.
I don't know if the pot gets hot, red hot. Doesn't get red hot.
The pot doesn't get hot.
The-
Yeah,
The pot gets as hot as the food gets. It's a lettuce, but it's not red hot. Question? No. Okay, one more thing before we continue inside, and that is the question. Yes?
On that point.
Which point?
If it's not hot, that special one, it's only the pot. Were you able to put something next to the pot to warm that because it's not coming from the fire?
Mm-mm. No, that would be like Toldas Chama. You can't heat with Toldas Chama. Midrabanan. Induction.
Induction,
Shkoyach. Very good. The things they come up with.
Yep.
Okay. Actually, Moshe might hold it is deraisa. If it's like a normal way of cooking now. If people consider it a normal way of cooking, maybe it does become deraisa. That's what he says about microwaves. So I guess he would say the same thing about this. Okay. Talking about Bishul Acha Bishul, which is what we're going to talk about today, but before we start reading it inside, there is a Machlekes Rishonim, which is not brought in the Machaber, nor in the Alter Rebbe, but the Mishnah Berurah brings it down. And that is there an Isser Bishul when something is heated, when something is already cooked, K'maichel ben Drusoy?
But not completely.
Not completely, correct. The Rashba and many other Rishonim, the Mishnah Berurah lists them, quite a long list, Ramban, the Ran, I don't remember all of them. They say, Ein Bishul Acha Bishul. Once something is cooked to the point of K'maichel ben Drusoy, which means that if a person who would have done that on Shabbos, Chas v'Shalom, would be over on an Isser D'Oraisa. A person who would take a raw food and cook it to the point of half cooked, and it's edible for for those robbers or whoever is very hungry, whatever it is, that is Bishul D'Oraisa. Everybody agrees to that, by the way. Everybody agrees to that. So if you're already over on a Bishul D'Oraisa, that's it. Ein Bishul Acha Bishul. So according to those Rishonim, if something is half cooked, there is no Isser Bishul. If you want to talk about all of the conditions of Chazorah that we spoke about, you take something off the fire, you want to put it back, it has to be fully cooked. Nah. According to them, it does not have to be fully cooked. It has to be half cooked. Once it's half cooked, there's no Isser to continue cooking it. Now, the Rambam disagrees. The Rambam says that even though you're over Bishul the first time, you can still be over Bishul until it's fully cooked. Midoraisa. We only say Ein Bishul Acha Bishul once it's fully cooked. So it's interesting that we have two machlokes about Ein Bishul Acha Bishul or Yesh Bishul Acha Bishul. One is Balach, right? When something is liquid, we're going to learn about it today, right? If it cools off, is there an issue to reheat it? Some say yes, some say no. So in a similar way, we have the argument about, it's interesting, the Rambam holds opposite things, so the arguments can't be connected. In a similar way, we have an argument about something already defined as cooked, because it's edible, but it's not fully cooked. Is it considered cooking to continue cooking it. It's interesting. The Rambam holds ein bishul achar bishul balach. But the Rambam also holds yesh bishul achar bishul in the case of kamachal ben drusai. I wonder if there's a connection between those two opinions. Can't think of it right now. So it's just something interesting. The Rambam. Yesh bishul achar bishul b'machal ben drusai. If something is cooked kamachal ben drusai but not fully cooked, and you continue cooking it, that is an Issa D'Oraisa according to the Rambam. Makes no difference, lach or yavish. I don't know if lach has the concept of kamachal ben drusai. I don't know if it has that concept. I don't know if it does. No, I think it's either Yad Seletas by or not. That's let in it is not an issue. On it is an issue. In it is not an issue.
Moist is also not an issue. It has to be water.
Yeah, it has to be actual liquid, but there's usually some liquid on it. What I'm saying. It's mostly yavish. What are you asking it in reference to? What are you asking it? So that depends. It's a machlokes if you go by the roiv or not. We'll discuss it later. I understand. Well, we'll see.
Where's this discussion?
About what?
Whether it has to be
The Machaber just says it as a fact. He quotes the Rambam's opinion, doesn't bring the other opinion. The Rambam also doesn't bring it. So it seems like he agrees with the Machaber, who is passing like the Rambam. And the Mishnah Berurah says, I wondered why the other Rishonim don't merit a mention, and he brings all of their names. But then he brings, the Rambam has other Rishonim who agree with him, the Or Zerua, and the Smag, and the Smak, and da. So there's a whole list.
Who's those about that?
Mishnah Berurah. But he says, an interesting thing, that B'di'evad, you could rely on those Rishonim. That means if a person, it's a big nafkamina, a person, let's say, did chazara, and it was not fully cooked. A mistake, put it back. But it was half cooked. The Mishnah Berurah says, B'di'evad, you could rely on those Rishonim and say that it's okay. Sorry? Lechatchila we consider it bishul. You can't do it lechatchila. The Rambam, the Machaber, the Ramah, the Rebbe, Mishnah Berurah, everybody agrees they can't do it lechatchila. But b'di'evad, he says, you could rely on those opinions to eat it. I'm saying to eat it, not to do it, to eat it.
So wait, so where is fitting exactly?
Sorry?
How is it the opinion of the Rambam?
It doesn't. This is not the Rambam. This is the other Rishonim who say that once it's half cooked, it's ein bishul achar bishul. According to those Rishonim, no, you don't. It's already cooked. If it's considered cooked to the extent that we would give somebody skila for doing that, so it's already cooked. Further cooking doesn't change anything. Just like mitztamek v'yafa loy, everybody agrees is not bishul, even though it tastes better. Sorry? We paskin there is, yeah. Paskin there is. Correct. It is. But the Mishnah Berurah is saying, b'di'evad, you could rely on those other opinions. I don't think so. I'd allow it. The Rashba, the Ramban, the Ran, and others. The Mishnah Berurah has a whole list. I don't remember all their names. But interestingly, there is a third opinion, which is also worth mentioning. This is the way that Taz understands the Tur, that it's an Issa D'Rabbanan. According to the Tur, yeah. How? It's not D'Oraisa, because once it's cooked, but it looks like cooking. It's close to cooking. Chachamim forbade it. So that's a third opinion.
Wouldn't it be mentioned somewhere? Why is it a suffix if it's a Isser Rabbanan?
What do you mean a suffix?
Like, according to there's a Torah to me that it's an Isser Rabbanan.
Where does he get it from? Is that your question?
Only the Torah that maybe mentions Isser Rabbanan aren't Isser Rabbanan.
Well, I mean, the Beis Yosef asks your question, but he asks it in a different way. He says, it's either Bishul Acha Bishul or not Bishul Acha Bishul. Where do we find that something is Bishul Acha Bishul Rabbanan? Where do we find that? It's kind of your question. The Beis Yosef rejects that position, but the Taz does learn it in the Torah. Honestly, we do find it.
Rejects the position of who brought it before the Taz?
I'm sorry?
Who brought it before the Taz?
No, the Beis Yosef asks, maybe it should be Asman Rabbanan.
Oh, and he gets rid of the spot.
And he says, no, we don't find such a thing. We find this Ein Bishul Bishul, we find Yesh Bishul Bishul in some cases, but we don't find that there is no Bishul, but Rabbanan there is Bishul. But the truth is that there are opinions that Ashkenazim hold that the whole thing of Bishul Bishul Balach is Rabbanan. Yeah, there are opinions that say that. So we do find that. No. What I mean is that, as we're going to see, Ashkenazim say that as long as it's a little bit hot, even though it's not Yas Leves, but it's Ein Bishul Achar Bishul. Right? So that's what the Rambam paskins. So there are some Achronim understand him to mean that Mid'araisa Ein Bishul Achar Bishul Balach at all. But Rabbanan, they want it to be a little bit hot to make sure that it was a hot liquid once. And it's just a way of making sure that you're not heating a liquid that was never hot. That's so we do find, at least in that case, according to those Achronim, the concept.
Bishul Acha Bishul. Talking about the second time you want to be Medashal. Okay?
Yeah.
Is he talking about putting it back straight on the black on the fire or next to a heat source?
Well, to put it back on the fire, you would have to keep the conditions of Chazar. If you're keeping the conditions of Chazar, then yeah. If not, then we're talking about next to it.
Next to it, it's not the visual at all. Even so, it might be certain temperature.
No, I'm talking about close enough that it's going to be Yasa Letters. That's why it's not Chazara, but it could still be Bishul. Derech Bishul in terms of Chazara. It's not Mechzik Mavashal in terms of Chazara, but it's still Bishul Mid'araisa if it's Yesh Bishul Bishul, depending on the situation. You understand? Similar to the Plata, like we were saying before.
So all the times, Bishul Achar Bishul is going to be next to a fire, especially if you don't have the...
Unless you have the condition of Chazara, correct.
I mean, Machmir on Chazara, and then we put it on the side, and it's still cooking over there. So
What do you mean by still cooking?
I mean, if you put it next to it, it doesn't consider Chazara,
Correct.
but it's still getting cooking over there.
So if it's cooking, you can't do it. I'm talking about only when there's Ein Bishul Acha Bishul. If it's already cooked.
Cooking, but it's warm the food.
If it's already cooked, and it's dry, or if it's already cooked and it's liquid and it's still hot.
Yeah, but you still put it next to the heat.
Ein Bishul Achar Bishul means
So why you don't put it
Ein
back?
Bishul Achar Bishul.
So why we make a Machmir on the Machzik?
Mechzik Mavashal. It looks like cooking.
Because it look like.
Yeah. If you put it on the fire and you didn't keep the conditions of Chazar, it looks like cooking.
Only because.
Okay. Yosef wants you to speak up, Rafael. He says, speak up, Rafael. At 8:32, whatever you said at 8:32, he wants you to speak up. I didn't see it till now. Sorry. Yosef, everything good now? I guess.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't notice that. Okay, we are, without further ado, we are going to be learning the Mechaber. Seif Daled.
All the Bishul Achar Bishul, it's supposed to all type of cooking. Bishul, Tzliya, all considered in the same category?
Ein bishul achar bishul. Ein sliya achar tzliya. Ein afia achar afia.
But,
Does anyone
but
hold
you
this?
have to do bishul afia or tzliya achar.
That's a machlokes. That's a machlokes. We're going to see.
That's cool, Alan.
Afia usually
Machlokes.
is something softer.
No. Bishul say,
Yeah, for sure there's no bishul after bishul, no afia after afia. Question is there bishul after afia or afia after bishul? That's the machlokes. All right? Sliya is another type of bishul. What is sliya? Sliya is to roast something in the oven without liquid, which is basically afia, except afia is for baked goods and sliya is for meat or vegetables, but it's the same idea. It's without
So
liquid.
It's with liquid.
Exactly.
So if you're going to take something afia if it's soft, take something sour or it's soft.
You hear about softening something hard? Is that your question, like we were learning before? So that we have the answers we said before. You don't have to use fire to soften it. You can use it with liquid without fire. And maybe it doesn't apply to food, or maybe it doesn't apply to something cooked. Whatever answers we said before, you'll answer now. So it's more of a bishul issue per se, not about softening it. Save Dalet. Ready? Here we go. Tafshil shenizbashal kol tzorkoi yesh b'mishum bishul and mitztaneh. A cooked dish that was fully cooked has bishul if it cooled off. Notice how he says shenizbashal kol tzorkoi. That tells you that he's passing like the Rambam. Meaning, if it would not be nispashal called tzorkoi, then it would have bishul even if it was not nitztaneh. You understand? So. Here we have a tremendous chiddush of, tremendous chiddush of the Ramah based on Rabbeinu Yerucham. That's correct. Some say that the whole idea of bishul achar bishul balach is only if mesamek v'yafalei, only if it's going to taste better as it is cooking, not if it's going to taste worse, or basically get evaporated and not taste better. This is the opinion of Rabbeinu Yerucham. The Bach, by the way, completely disagrees with Rabbeinu Yerucham because he says the whole idea of mitztamek v'yafal and mitztamek v'rolai is only about whether you're going to want to stoke the coals or not. If it's mitztamek v'yafal, maybe you want to stoke the coals. Mitztamek v'rolai, you won't want to stoke the coals. But in terms of the actual definition of bishul, when we're defining bishul for the purpose of lach, let's step back for a minute. When it comes to something dry, once it's cooked, as we're going to see, there's no isser of bishul to reheat it. Because once it's cooked, it's cooked. Whether it's actually hot or cold doesn't make such a difference once it's edible. However, when it comes to liquid, the heat is important to the extent that, according to this opinion, which is what the Machaber is quoting now, the heat is the most important. So even after it was cooked, once it cools down, it's not considered cooked anymore because people want to have their liquids hot. Tea, soup, whatever it is. So if it's not hot, it's not considered cooked. So now just because it's mitztamek v'raloi, the fact is it's cold, so when you reheat it, it's getting warm. That's the definition of bishul. What's the difference if, by the way, it's also mitztamek v'raloi? So the Bach disagrees with the Rabbeinu Yerucham, and that's what the most of the Achronim go by. That if it's bishul, if it's lach, yesh b'shlach habishul, even if it's mistam aloi. However, the Taz does defend him. Ready? The Taz defends Rabbeinu Yerucham. This actually has to do with what we were discussing before. The Taz says that perhaps the whole concept of Bishul HaBishul Balach is Midrabanan, and therefore, if it's Mistam Raloi, meaning to say you're not happy about it because it's evaporating, so it becomes like how do you define it? The opposite of Malach is Machshavas. It's not an important Malach. It's not an important Malach. It's like what is it called when you damage something? Kilkul, exactly. It's like a kilkul, and it's only Rabbanon, so we can be Mekel. Big Chiddush, because the pastors, those that hold that Bishul Balach, the pastors, they hold that it is Doiraisa. So this Taz is a Chiddush, but that's what he says in defense of Rabbeinu Yerucham. Okay, V'imloin is Bashal called Sorkai. If it was not fully cooked, here he spells it out even more clearly than he said before. Even if it was cooked Kamaichel ben Rusoi, Shaykh by Bishul, it is Shaykh to have Bishul. Afilu by the Resech, even while it's still hot. Okay, now, in other words, even if it's still hot, which by liquids we said there is no Bishul HaBishul, if it's still hot, it does not apply if it was not properly cooked. That's only if it's a dish that has liquid. But if something was already cooked and it's dry, by the way, the definition of cooking is with liquid. That's the definition of bishul, as opposed to afia, which is without liquid. So here we're talking about something that was cooked. So obviously it was cooked in liquid, so it was liquidious, or however you pronounce that. But now it was dried off, like rice. You cooked the rice in liquid, but now it's dry. So mutter l'shroisoi b'chamen b'Shabbos. You're allowed to soak it in hot water on Shabbos. Meaning to say, even in a Kli Rishon, which a Kli Rishon definitely has the power to cook, but because this has already been cooked, you're allowed to put it back into a Kli Rishon. Now, of course, you cannot put it into a Kli Rishon that's on the fire, because that would not be following the conditions of Chazorah, right? To put it into a Kli Rishon on the fire, you have to have it in your hand the whole time. It has to be still hot in the same keli. All the conditions we said about before. Obviously, that's not the case over here, right? You're taking it out of the fridge and you want to reheat it. So to put it in a Kli Rishon off the fire is okay, because there's no Bishul Achar Bishul. To put it on the fire would not be okay, Midrabanan, because that's not following the conditions of Chazorah, so it looks like okay.
What would be an example of that?
Of what?
Something about
I can't give you a practical example right now, but in theory, if you would have dry noodles, which you can't, because in between the noodles there's liquid.
No, you can have dry noodles.
I'm not talking about chow mein. I'm not talking about roasted ones. I'm talking about cooked noodles that are now dried.
Right. The ones, I think some of the ones that are in the cup.
The ramen noodle?
Ramen. I don't know what they're called.
Are they cooked?
I think they're pre-cooked.
Yeah.
And you have to just add water to soften it up.
Okay. So if that's a fact, but they're properly cooked, fully cooked.
I think there's two types.
Not Michael Ben Rusai cooked, fully cooked, that would be an example. You could put them into a hot chicken soup pot off the fire.
And you'd also be allowed to pour hot water on them?
Absolutely. Kal v'chomer. That's
Yeah,
if you could put it into a
it's already
Rishon,
cooked, yeah.
how much more so you could
Still different
pour
than instant
onto them
coffee.
from a Kli Rishon.
Right? It's no different than instant coffee.
Yeah. I mean, instant coffee is a bit more complicated because beans are roasted, not cooked. Some say there is cooking after roasting, but whatever.
But no, I'm sorry, I think that those knowledge talking about, they're not clear about where they are.
Yeah, they are because they put them
The
in
noodles?
salads.
Yeah, you can
They put them in salads, yeah.
The very middle of tradition.
Yes, yes.
Nobody eat it like this.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
put them in
Yeah,
salads.
they do.
They put them in salads and we
Honestly, I don't know if they're fully cooked. Are they fully cooked or maybe just half cooked? I don't know.
By the way, when you're
I don't
talking about fully cooked,
Someone once told me there's two types.
to be
Okay, maybe.
consider Bishul or Bishul, it
Yeah.
means that the fully cooked have to be done before Shabbos. Not like something that you can cook during Shabbos and then I can function during the day.
Who said that? Who said that?
No, this is the way I'm with it. אבל דבר שמבשל כבר הוא יבש מותר כשאותו בחמים בשבת. ואם הוא דבר יבש שלא נתבשל בפני השבת, אין שואלים אותו בחמים בשבת.
אז מתבשל, has to be
So why
מאכל
does it say
ומדוסה.
שלא להתבשל לפני השבת? It means that it has to be before Shabbos.
pre-cooked.
This is the way I understand from Chavi. That's it?
I see it, but I don't know. I don't know exactly what the diuk is. I hear your diuk, but I don't think that's what he means. Imud dover yav shalom is bashal melifnei haShabbos. Why does he say melifnei haShabbos? If it would be cooked on Shabbos, would it make a difference?
It probably means Kimelcha ben Drusai. Then obviously, then we'd be allowed to do Shihia and then have the rest cooked on Shabbat.
And what if it wasn't Kamach Menusai, but it was Grufo Ktuma? That's 100% fine. I mean, not according to Biki Eger, but according to many Acharon, that's 100% fine. But why does he say Melifnei Shabbos? Let me see if the Mishnah Berurah says anything on that. Doesn't say anything about that. How does Alter ever word it?
Also, בסעיף י"א, אם הדבר הזה שלא יבשל לפני השבת, אין שואלים אותו בחמים. That also,
It's a Mishnah, he says.
בסעיף י"א, במילה, שמלה שם.
Mishnah Shabbat. כל שבא בחמים מלפני השבת, שורין אותו בחמים משבת.
145. Let me look up the Mishnah. Okay, the Mishnah on Kuf Mem Amud Aleph says, "Kol sheba b'chamen me'erev Shabbos, shoyer noisoi b'chamen b'Shabbos." Anything that was put in hot water before Shabbos, you can soak it in hot water on Shabbos.
If it's,
Very simple. The reason why the Mishnah says that is very simple, right? Because the Mishnah is talking about if it was cooked before Shabbos, right? It's cooked before Shabbos. Kol sheba b'cham before Shabbos. Before Shabbos, you put it in hot water and you cooked it. You understand? He doesn't even say kol davar shenizbashel. Notice the language of the Mishnah doesn't say kol davar shenizbashel melifnei Shabbos. This is not the language of the Mishnah. The language of the Mishnah is kol sheba b'chaman me'erev Shabbos. Whatever you put in hot water before Shabbos and cooked it, in parentheses, so now you can put it back in hot water on Shabbos. So obviously he has to say me'erev Shabbos. You couldn't have put it in hot water on Shabbos for the first time. You understand? He's talking about the action of putting it in hot water. He's not talking about the fact that it was then fully cooked afterwards. That's kind of self-understood. You understand? See what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I know what you're saying, but
It would seem to me that because the Mishnah is talking about the action of putting it in, it has to say on Erev Shabbos, because obviously you cannot do that action on Shabbos. The Poskim, when they quote the Mishnah, they change the language of the Mishnah in a very significant way, by the way. Why don't the Poskim just say the language of the Mishnah? Kol sheba b'chamen me'erev Shabbos, shor noise b'chamen b'Shabbos. Whatever you put in hot water on Shabbos, you can put back in before Shabbos, or you can put back in hot water on Shabbos, which the Rambam says, by the way. But the Shulchan Aruch doesn't say that. The Magen Avraham points out, no. Mashma, it's not enough that you put it in hot water. It has to be fully cooked. That's the Chiddush. The Rambam says, if you put something in hot water before Shabbos, even if it's not fully cooked, you can put it back in hot water on Shabbos. Why? Then it wasn't on the fire. Now it's not on the fire. So then it cooked to whatever extent something cooks off the fire in a Kli Rishon. So that amount of cooking was already done. You put it back into a Kli Rishon, it's not going to cook it anymore. Now, of course, if you put it on the fire, that would be cooking, because the Rambam says that when something is cooked, there is still bishul to cook it 100%. So just because you soaked it in hot water doesn't mean you cooked it 100%. If you would put it on the fire on Shabbos, that would be cooking. But if you put it in a Kli Rishon before Shabbos, and now you put it in a Kli Rishon after Shabbos, or on Shabbos, that's not bishul.
The same Kli Rishon.
No, a Kli Rishon, off the fire, both off the fire.
Right,
That's
but
the same.
On the fire, it decreases temperature.
I understand, but the first time was off the fire, second time was off the fire. So there's no accomplishment of the second time over the first fire.
No, but if I put a piece of steak in the first fire, that's not the first fire is obviously not an H.
Yep.
The first fire is not on the fire.
Yep.
The first water's on fire. So if the first water's on the fire, I put it in for 15 minutes, it gets 10%.
Yep.
I put it now in a just finished boiling urn, take out the canister from inside, I take it out and I put the steak back inside.
Exactly.
It's not gonna cook to 20%.
Not according to the Rambam. But that's exactly where the Machaber changes from the language of the Rambam and the Mishnah and says, no. It has to be fully cooked in order to put it back in hot water. Because even if it cooked somewhat in the Kli Rishon the first time, until it's fully cooked, it could continue to cook in a Kli Rishon. I'm sorry?
why the Russian is davar yavesh? That didn't cook before Shabbos. The Russian is yavesh.
Because we're talking about a davar yavesh. If you wait. Answer the question. Let me answer the question. A davar yavesh that you cooked fully before Shabbos, you can put back into a Kli Rishon even though it's cold. A davar lach, we just finished saying you cannot put into a Kli Rishon even if you cooked it before Shabbos, because once it cools down, it's yesh bishul. Davar yavesh, once it was fully cooked, now you can put it back into a Kli Rishon on Shabbos.
Davar yavesh, if you can play like in Chamin, it's not going to be mitzvah there fellow.
Pesach Yafaleh is not called cooking on Shabbos. That's why you're allowed to do chazorah, even if it's Pesach Yafaleh. You're allowed. You can take something off the fire, serve it to your guests, put it back on the fire with all the conditions of chazorah, even though it's going to taste better. For sure. You can do it even if it gets better. How much more so if it gets worse? That's not going to be bishul if it gets worse. As long as it's fully cooked, yeah. Yeah, except that by lach it has to still be hot. By Yavish, it can be cold. Okay, so my guess on these words, the Erev Shabbos, it's just a guess. And I would like to see it somewhere. My guess is that he's just following the language of the Mishnah. The Mishnah has to say Erev Shabbos because he's talking about the action. The action has to be done before Shabbos. The Mishnah, the Mechaber adds that it has to be fully cooked because he wants to point out, not like the Rambam, that it's enough that it was soaked. No, it has to be fully cooked. But he keeps in the words Erev Shabbos because that's the language of the Mishnah. That's what it would seem to me. Okay. So we continue and we say, now, did I finish the previous piece? One more time. Something was cooked and it's dry. You're allowed to soak it in hot water on Shabbos. Okay, notice he says it's already cooked. It's not enough to have been soaked, right? It has to have been cooked. Then you can soak it in hot water on Shabbos. Sorry? Yavish, exactly.
What about tea bags? What's that? Is tea bags cooked?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's why there's an issue with making tea on Shabbos.
It is taken clear also.
Different ways, different way. I mean, we will discuss, but I'm saying there is an issue of Bishul because those leaves were never cooked before. Is there an issue with Klishishi? We'll see. But I'm saying, in general, there is an issue. It's not cooked before.
Oatmeal is a dry one. The packets,
What about them?
right? Like the noodles, right? It was cooked.
Oatmeal is
Right.
cooked?
The packets.
I
Yeah,
don't
but
think
quick.
so.
You can't cook it by just putting it in water.
Was it cooked before? I don't think so.
You make a daisa.
Are you sure?
Yeah, the quick ones. You know, the packets.
Instant.
Instant.
Yeah,
It's,
but you
it's
make-
cooked and dehydrated.
Really? Lashamati. I never heard that. I have to look into it. I want to buy into it right away because I'm not sure. All right, instant oats pre-cooked. Instant oats are all pre-cooked to some degree. All right. Google agrees with you,
It's good.
but I doubt they're fully cooked. They're not fully cooked. They'd be fully cooked, they'd become all sticky. How would they dry them out? I assume that they're only partially cooked.
It's good enough, Rabbi?
No, it's not good enough. That's actually a perfect example.
If it happens,
Because how do we do instant oats? We don't do it in Kli Rishon, right? Even during the week. You know, you put it into the cup, you pour on it, and you can't do that on Shabbos.
but if it happened, you'd be able to eat it, according to.
If it's kamachim and rusoy. I don't know to what extent they cook them. Honestly, I don't know. We have to get some drusoy, some ben drusoy guy, and find out if he would eat them. I mean, he wouldn't eat them dry. I mean, they're just. I mean, I don't know.
When it's hot, when you cook them, then you can eat them.
Question is if you would
Not when
eat
it's
them
cold.
with water, like cold water. Right? Dry is just not, you can't, it's too dry. Question is if you eat them with cold water, that's the shayla.
Yeah, with the milk.
But even so, it's
Cold milk,
only for b'diavad according to the Chavetz Chaim. It's not for lachatchil.
Rabbi, cold milk, you can mix it together.
Yeah. So maybe it's good for ben drusai. Okay. Let's continue. If it's something dry that was not cooked before Shabbos, you cannot soak it on Shabbos. and hot water in a Kli Rishon. Ava medichin oise b'chamin b'Shabbos. You can rinse it in hot water on Shabbos. Pour it, exactly. Now, when he says pouring, pour, does it mean from a Kli Rishon or a Kli Sheni? How do you know? That's correct. When he says you can pour hot water on something that was not cooked from before Shabbos, he means from a Kli Sheni. Because a Kli Rishon, an Eruv from Kli Rishon, according to Rabbeinu Tam, cooks a Kedei Klipa. It cooks a peel's depth. And therefore you cannot pour onto anything raw from a Kli Rishon. So when it says Medich and Oise B'chamin, it means from a Kli Sheni. I don't think so. There's an opinion that says that a Eruv from Kli Rishon does not cook. That's the Rashbam. But that's not the main halacha in Hilchos Shabbos. Only Ashkenazim hold of Kalei Bishul.
I guess we'll get there.
That's the opinion of Uraim. I don't know if the Machaber brings down the Uraim. I don't think so, actually. Yeah. No, one second. Sorry. Kalei Bishul is right here. Right here. This Machaber. Machaber says it right now. Yes, the Machaber holds the Kalei Bishul, yes. The Uraim says that we're not sure there may be other things that might cook. But the fact that there are some things that are Kalei Bishul, the Machaber says right now, this minute. Exactly. Yes, I'm sorry. Bread is a davar yavish.
So we don't put bread in a soup bowl that is in the kitchen.
That's because of Bishul Achrafiyah.
Okay.
Or maybe. It's much like this. Maybe.
On the bread and something yavish also. So what can be different?
Whoa. What? What?
You can be made with klisheni and davar yavish, but you cannot. But the try not to put it davar yavish klisheni.
Why? What is your question? Are you allowed to pour from a Kli Sheni onto bread? Is that your question?
It's davar yavish, yeah. You know the phrase?
Sounds like what he's saying.
It sounds like it should be fine.
But we're not putting bread into klisheni.
We're going to see that in the next if correct.
So why?
Why are we stricter in a Kli Rishon than pouring from a Kli? Sorry.
Why are we strict not to put
Why are we?
klisheni, but we're going to be leaning to pour from klisheni on the bread?
Why is pouring from a Kli Sheni more lenient than putting in a Kli Sheni?
Yes.
That's your question.
Yeah.
So there are two reasons that we're strict with the Kli Sheni. Two reasons we're strict with the Kli Sheni. The Magen Avraham brings one down right here, which is from Tosfos. Tosfos says that a Kli Sheni is mechzei k'mavashel. It looks like cooking. Looks like cooking.
Most of the time, klisheni is not that relative.
Looks like cooking. Shemeh? Look, it is yes, let us boy. You poured it straight out of the Kli Rishon. It's very hot. Looks like cooking. So that's one thing. Pouring from a Kli Sheni, it doesn't look like cooking. Not the normal way to cook by pouring from a Kli Sheni. So that's one thing. And then there's another concept, and that's the Uraim. I think that's maybe what you were mentioning. The Uraim says that a Kli Sheni has the power to cook some foods. And we don't know which foods exactly.
Kli Sheni has power to cook some?
Yeah. So we're machmer because we don't know what. We don't know what it cooks. So we're machmer.
Also,
I'm sorry? The Alter brings down the Uraim, yeah.
I thought the whole idea of Kli Sheni is that it's not going to hold its heat like Kli Rishon. So what would be the difference? Let's say if I have a Kli Rishon, Kli Sheni, and a Kli Shlishi, and the food is in the Kli Shlishi. So what would be the difference if it's immediate pouring, first to second, second to third, that the temperature would go down? The whole point is that the temperature is not going to hold itself. But the temperature...
Well, it also does go down somewhat. Every time you're pouring it through the air, it's going down. And it is cool. Okay, but there is some cooling.
Right, but it's still cooking.
It's still
Why
Yatzer
do we
Ledes.
say it's not cooking?
What you're suggesting is that you understand that a Kli Sheni is more similar to a Kli Rishon, and therefore maybe Mechzik and should apply to a Kli Sheni more than a Kli Shlishi. But when it comes to the actual cooking of things that are Kale HaBishul, which the Yereim says we don't know what they are, so maybe a Kli Shlishi should also cook. That's your question. It's a valid question.
The only reason for Kli Sheni and Mavashal, Kli Shlishi, is that the temperature will not hold for as long as a time as the Kli Rishon will.
That's what Tosfos says.
Is there another time?
I don't think so.
So it just doesn't make sense really that if I would do something immediate, that it would be within 3 seconds that I have. I mean, technically speaking, it's if you put a thermometer, probably I'm only assuming in the Kli Rishon, and then after I do it in the Kli Shlishi, it'll probably be very close to that same temperature.
Well, there's no question that sometimes a Kli Shlishi can be a much higher temperature than a Kli Rishon. A Kli Rishon that's been off the fire for an hour is still a Kli Rishon al pi halacha, and it still cooks al pi halacha. A Kli Shlishi that has just been poured from a Kli Sheni 3 seconds ago is a Kli Shlishi and doesn't cook, even though it could be in many degrees higher. Well, Tosfos addresses this. This is what you were saying. Tosfos says that the walls of the Kli Rishon are hot, so they retain the temperature for longer. And the walls of the Kli Sheni, or for sure the Kli Shlishi, are not, and therefore it's going down. So what's understood from Tosfos is what you're saying, that the extended maintaining of the higher temperature is what cooks it in a Kli Rishon. And because you don't have that extended ability to maintain the temperature in the other Kalim, that's what doesn't cook.
So according to Tosfos, I would actually be able to cook something better if I leave it for 15 minutes in a Kli Rishon that's an hour been off of the heat, then a Kli Shlishi immediately off of the heat, a 5 second remove from the heat.
That's not Tosfos, that's the Gemara. The Gemara, Tosfos is explaining the Gemara. The fact that Kli Shlishi, the Gemara doesn't discuss Kli Sheni. Kli Shlishi, I mean. The fact that Kli Sheni and Mavashal is the Gemara, that's not a Tosfos. Tosfos is explaining the Gemara. Of course it cooks less. Maybe there are some Kali HaBishul that it cooks anyway, fine. But the fact that generally a Kli Sheni cooks less than a Kli Rishon is a fact.
So the Yereim is saying that Yereim is saying there are even things that a Kli Sheni would cook because it's Kali HaBishul.
Yeah.
And the Sfardim say that.
I don't know if the Machaber brings down that Yereim.
So the Sfardim
I have to
say
check.
that it's not.
I don't want to say because I haven't looked into it yet, and I don't want to say. I have in my head that the Machaber doesn't bring down that chashash, but I don't want to say what Sfardim do or don't do because I'm not familiar at this point.
So if we're worried about Bishul, so
for your information, since you're pressing the point, I must tell you the truth that the Yereim himself is concerned with the Kli Shlishi too.
Say again?
The Yereim himself says not to do it in a Kli Shlishi either, because of exactly what you're saying. If you want to talk about Mechzei, you could differentiate between Kli Sheni and Kli Shlishi. The further removed it is, the less it looks like cooking. But if you want to talk about Kali HaBishul cooking, so who says they can't cook in a Kli Shlishi? And the Yereim says actually that you cannot use a Kli Shlishi either. As far as I know, he's the only Rishon that holds like that. And Reb Moshe kind of dismisses the whole Kli Shlishi thing. Reb Moshe seems to be going with Tosfos, that the main issue of a Kli Sheni is the Mechzik and the Lashma. And therefore, Kli Shlishi is not an issue. But there is reason to be machmer based on that Yereim. I'm saying those that quote the Yereim and are choshesh for the Yereim
From now on, you will not drink coffee.
would be machmer in a Kli Shlishi. The Pri Megadim, for example, says to be machmer in a Kli Shlishi. No, makes no difference. No, as long as it's the Yatzer Ledes, boy. We don't know. Yeah, we don't know what cooks, what is a Kali HaBishul, and therefore the Pri Megadim would be strict.
We're gonna get to that sif. Is that a sif?
Klisheni is a sif, yeah, we'll discuss it.
The Siman?
In this Siman, yeah. I grew up hearing a song by Moshe Yes, who should rest in peace, who made a song, There Ain't No Bishul in a Kli Shlishi. It was a whole song with the whole tune and the whole rhyme, and that was the punchline. It like gets into your head. There ain't no bishul in a kli shlishi. Like there's nothing you can do.
Like, and Bishul, achar Bishul.
It's actually a machlekes. Not so simple.
You should make the remix.
Make the remake.
Exactly. Okay. Which we said means pouring on it from a klisheni. Chutz min hamaliach hayashan umindag shenikra kulyas ispenin. Besides from a heavily salted food.
What's an example of that?
Example of that is they used to salt fish with a lot of salt, and because there was so much salt in it, the only way they could get off the salt was by pouring hot water on it. That's the only way they could successfully disintegrate and dissolve that salt and get rid of it. And that exactly, that's considered like a bishul, mid'oraisa. That's like a kalei bishul.
Is that the only example?
No, the next example, min dag.
Oh, you know, but Maliach Hayashav is that dag?
Yeah, that I know of. I mean, if they did it for other things, maybe, I don't know. Min dag shenikar kulyas ispenin. And the type of fish called Spanish mackerel. And that was simply a fish that was easy to cook. And even pouring on it from a klisheni was enough to cook it. This is kalei habishul. They only need a small amount of cooking. And rinsing them off in hot water completes their malach. I mean to say their cooking.
So other than these two things, Ron would hold other ones?
No, these are examples. These are examples. But he doesn't, he's not choshesh for things that we don't know to be kalei habishul. You understand? These are examples of things that we know are kalei habishul, and if there's something else that you know is a kalei habishul, you see with your eyes that it cooks, yeah. But he doesn't bring the chashash of the Iran that says, well, maybe everything, we're choshesh that everything may be a kalei habishul. See what I'm saying? He says, whatever is ancient, that's it. These are the exceptions. Again, there may be other exceptions, but only if you know them to be exceptions. He doesn't bring the chashash that maybe everything is like this. Okay. What was I going to say?
So if I had noodles that are not cooked, and I put them in a kli sheni, that would be mutter on Shabbat.
Klisheni is not mutter. Klisheni is mechzik mavashal.
If I pour water into that, if I have a urn and I have a cup of noodles in them, and I pour water in on top of the noodles.
That's Irim and Klirishan that cooks a peel's depth according to Rabbeinu Tam. Medichin oisa b'chamen means to pour on it from a klisheni.
So if I have kli sheni water and I pour onto my noodles, or I have kli sheni water, I pour onto my noodles. If I see that they're cooking, and at the end of the day they're actually soft and cooked, I would not be allowed to eat them.
So it would seem, yes. If it's something that you see cooks easily, then it would be a problem. The Maharam Kozis actually brings this about eggs. That if you put an egg in a klisheni and you switch the water to fresh hot water, you know what I mean? You have a klirishan, you have the urn. You pour hot water into a cup. You put the egg in that cup and you leave it there for 10 minutes. And then you pour out the water and you pour new, fresh hot water and you put in the egg. That egg will cook.
On top of the egg?
No, not on top.
Oh, so take another cup and put the egg.
Put another, yeah. It will cook. No question about it.
putting it into a cliche bag?
And only a cliche, but switching the water. Understand? So that's another example. You see, if you physically see it cooks, you know that it's a kalei bishul.
So what's the halacha for the cup of tea or cup of coffee in Shabbat? Mishimi.
We'll get to it.
How is this
Zat Hashem.
trying to avoid evil klisheni and try to add stuff to klishlishi?
I'm sorry.
Instead of doing evil klisheni, put the stuff that you want in the klishlishi after the water in the klishlishi.
You're asking if Kli Shlishi is better than Eri from Klisheni?
Usually this is what we're doing. We don't pour in, let's say you don't put the coffee or the sugar in the klishishi and then you buy more in the klishini. First you put the klishishi and then you're adding the rest.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true. I don't think there's any mila in that. I don't think so.
How about you got kumkum here?
One second. What I mean to say is, if it's chashash kalei bishul, then it's a problem both ways. And if it's not, then it's not. See what I'm saying? Klisheni is definitely machmer, right? But either from klisheni and klishlishi, I don't think there's a difference. I don't think so.
How about you got the kumkum is the clear rishon. You pour water to here is klishiri. You take another cup, it's clear shishi.
Yeah.
And then if you take this cup and you put it back,
Clear revi'i.
the same cup, it's okay, no problem. It's clear revi.
No problem, yeah. Worden called over koshin roy lechel klal. Below shriyadas l'shoyz of Shabbos tag malach. The same thing the Rama adds. Anything that is hot, that is hard, that is not fit to eat without soaking, you're not allowed to soak it on Shabbos because that is gemar malacha. That is considered the end of cooking it, and it is considered cooking.
You want to put a slide of lemon?
Slide of what?
Lishi or even klisheni on the lemon? Or it's considered
A slice of lemon.
A lemon.
Yeah, considered stuffing or actually.
What do you mean? What's your question?
If you're allowed to do it, it's considered. I know onion you will not consider the topping, so you're not to be ma'aret klisheni on it. You're allowed to put other tablini into klisheni.
We'll get to that because it's something like with the tea, Rabbi.
Lemon, which category is going to be?
We'll get to it. Yeah, we didn't discuss tavlinim at all.
Tea and lemon, all that.
We'll discuss
It's
it.
the same
Discuss it. Okay.
But lemon considered as a tablin or as a actually
I don't know.
food?
I don't know. Not sure. Okay, before we learn the Alter Rebbe, I just want to go back to the source sheet that I gave out. And I want to say that Bishul, I'm sorry?
Yeah, right.
7:45.
Huh?
At 7:45. Bishul achar bishul balach, sources, number 5. Just to give you some idea of who says what. Rashi says, Yesh bishul achar bishul balach. Where does he say this? He says this about the sugya of hatmana. When it comes to when it comes to insulating on Shabbos, it's something that does not add heat. It says you cannot do that because you may find that the pot is cold, and then you will reheat it. And Rashi says, and even though it's cooked, it's also to reheat. I want to get the exact language, so I shouldn't get it wrong. Give me a moment. Lamed Daled Amud Aleph. V'nimtza mevashel b'Shabbos. Gzeir yimtza kedei rosa shenitztanan kashiyis l'hatmina. Maybe you will find that your pot is cold. And you'll reboil it. And that is cooking on Shabbos. So we see that reheating a pot is cooking on Shabbos. On the other hand, the Mishnah that we just quoted before in 145b says, Kol shebaba chamin me'erev Shabbos, anything that was put into hot water before Shabbos, you can put back into hot water on Shabbos. And the Gemara says clearly, even though it was totally cooled off and so on. So how do we resolve the contradiction? So the answer is, here it's liquid. And reheating a liquid is considered cooking. Because like we said before, the important thing for the liquid is for it to be hot. And once it's cooled off, it loses that, obviously. And if it's solid, no, once it's cooked, it's cooked. Whether it's hot or cold doesn't make such a difference. That's Rashi's opinion. The Rashba, and the Rambam for that matter, hold no. They hold ein bishul achar bishul, even balach. The reason, by the way, that we're concerned with insulating is not that there's a problem to reheat it. We're concerned that you may turn the fire on to reheat it. You understand? Havora, right? You may ignite the fire or add wood to the fire. That's the only issue. Okay, so there you have some Rishonim opinions. Okay. We are in the Alter Rebbe. Seif. Test. Seif 9, yes? Go with me? Got to move this document over, make room on a page, side by side, Hebrew and English. Here we go. Okay, kol davar lach, anything liquid. Yesh b'bishul achar bishul, there is bishul after bishul. Dahainu, tav shalach shas bashal kvar kol tzorka v'netztanen. A liquid dish that was already cooked fully and cooled off. V'afilu lo netztanen legamri, even if it did not cool off completely. As long as it is not yatz boy, which is the definition of hot for Shabbos purposes. If you reheat it on Shabbos to the point that it is yatz boy, chayev mishum avashal, he is chayev for cooking. If it is hot to the extent that it is yatz boy, sorry. You make it more hot. There is no bishul. It is mutter even to boil it next to the fire, which is more, as long as there is no problem of chitui. Meaning to say, you cannot put it directly over a fire because you may forget and stoke the fire. You can put it next to a fire a little bit far away. That reminds me. I do want to mention, by the way, that we had Rabbeinu Yona's opinion that says that you cannot take a pot of water and pour it into the cholent because that's considered cooking. So clearly Rabbeinu Yona holds yesh bishul achar bishul balach. But here we see an amazing chiddush that he holds yesh bishul achar bishul balach that's still hot. So what's the pshat according to Rabbeinu Yona? Are you allowed to move the cholent on the plata from one spot to another, from a cooler spot to a warmer spot, where before it was only 150 degrees, now it's going to be 160, or before it was 200, now it's going to be 212, it's going to start boiling? Is that actually usher? So I saw Shlomo Zalman explains no. Shlomo Zalman explains that according to Rabbeinu Yona, the issue is taking the water that is no longer able to cook something else because it's already left the Kli Rishon, which, as you remember, the Rashbam holds even the ear from Kli Rishon cannot cook. So he's going with that opinion. So you're basically taking water that does not have the power to cook, and you're putting it back in the Kli Rishon, you're giving it the power to cook. And according to Benu Yoina, a very important aspect of water is to be able to cook other things. You understand? It's not just for itself. Water is something we use to cook, not just water, but liquids in general, we use it to cook other things. So to bring a liquid from a state of not being able to cook other things to being able to cook other things, that is defined as Bishul. Now, if it's already in the Kli Rishon, you're moving it around this way, that way, hotter, not, that doesn't make a difference. The Kli Rishon can cook anyway. You understand? So that's why he's more machmir with pouring into a Kli Rishon from a Kli Rishon than moving around a Kli Rishon itself on the fire, because you're changing its status from not being able to cook to being able to cook. Okay. As far as putting it on a stovetop or an oven, we explained that all over there. If it's covered, you need the conditions, all the things. Some say that even if something was cooled down, there's still no bishul bishul. Right? Rashba, Ran, and so on. You're allowed to reheat it on the fire as long as there is no issue with stoking. Okay, here comes the Ramah's leniency, which we did not see in our Ramah, by the way. It's interesting, the Ramah doesn't bring this leniency until way later in Siftes Love, but that is his opinion, which for some reason he saves to share with us until later. But the minhag of Ashkenazim is to be lenient if it's not fully cooled down. Rather, it is still hot enough to eat as a result of its heat. If it has cooled down fully, then we follow the first opinion. Even the diavad, meaning to say we don't eat it if it was reheated, on Shabbos by a Jew. Or so Siman Gimel, as we explained, Siman Gimel. That's the Alter Rebbe's opinion, by the way. That if it's a Issur D'Oraisa, we don't rely on the lenient opinions even b'diavad. Saying if the halacha is not like Issur D'Rabbanan, yes, Issur D'Oraisa not. Even to put it on the heating oven before the guy heats it up, the guy's going to heat up the heating oven. And you're just putting it down there, so you're only causing bishul. And anyway, some people say, "Ein bishul bishul lach." No, even that now. So to anything that has bishul. Okay, before we continue, I want to share with you two opinions in understanding this Ramah. Ready? The question on the Ramah is, where does he come up with this? I mean, there's either bishul acha bishul, or there's not bishul acha bishul. What is this about it being hot enough to serve because of its heat? Well, what is that? I mean, yatsa letters by is the definition of bishul for liquids. So if it's yatsa letters by, we understand ain't bishul acha bishul. If it's not yatsa letters by, well, those that say yesh bishul acha bishul should say yesh bishul acha bishul. Just because you could eat it, I mean, where's it from?
It could be the case that it's hot. It could be hot but not completely cooked. But in the other case, it is yet solid, but it can be completely cooked and less not solid.
Why? Yes, let us bake completely cooked.
But when it was cooked, it was completely cooked. It got cold.
So,
but the other case, it can be very hot, but it's still not completely cooked. This one is very hot. Doesn't mean it's completely cooked. So maybe it can be bishul acha bishul. But this one that's completely cooked, but it's less than solid, maybe it's holding that there's no bishul acha bishul, it's completely cooked.
The opinion that says yesh bishul acha bishul balach, right, says that even if it's fully cooked, right, once it cools down, yesh bishul acha bishul. So what is this about partially cooled down? Less than yes, let us buy, but still fit for guests. You understand?
Still, that's good.
What's the idea behind it? Where's it from? So there's two ways of understanding the pshat. Now that we have 4 minutes to go, 2 minutes for each opinion. Get ready. Here goes. First of all, we have to share with you Rabbi Akiva Eger's chiddush. Rabbi Akiva Eger says when we say that it's enough for it to be hot to eat because of its heat, you need to say you're serving hot soup to your guests. It doesn't have to be yatsa lettuce boy, but it has to be hot. That's the heat we're talking about. When it says roy lechal machos chamei musa, you would serve it as a hot dish. Okay. Rabbi Akiva Eger says it has to be that it's still hot from when it was yatsa lettuce boy. It was yatsa lettuce boy, and now it cooled down a little bit. Still hot enough to serve. That's good enough. But if it was cooked on Tuesday, and you put it in the fridge, and then on Shabbos morning you heat it up, however, in the sun or on the side, and now it's hot enough to serve guests, but it's not hot from when it was yatsa lettuce boy. It's a new thing. He says, no, that's not allowed. It has to still be hot from when it was yatsa lettuce. You understand?
It's the same concept that we said if you cooked it, cooked on chama or bechama, it's have to be hot from a source of fire.
It has to be still hot, not just from a source of fire, because if you heated it now next to a fire to less than yatsa lettuce boy, you can't say, oh, now it's not. Now it's already okay to move it over and make it more than yatsa lettuce boy. You understand? That doesn't work. Even if you did it with a fire, it doesn't work. It has to be from when it was yatsa lettuce boy. That's the heat it still has to have.
He's explaining the Rambam.
He's explaining the Rambam.
It's not right.
No. He's explaining. So based on this, we can say
So it has to be come from a fire
it has to come from a fire and from yatsa lettuce boy
to be cooled down
to still be allowed to heat up,
during Shabbos.
to reheat up.
So let's say it has to be on the fire during Shabbos to be able to do all the concepts of audition.
No, it could be just before Shabbos. Just before Shabbos, it was hot. Chicken soup. You cooked it, and now you took it off, and it's still hot. It's not yatsa lettuce boy, but it's still hot from when it was yatsa lettuce boy. Understand? So it's not going to be bishul achar bishul. So based on this, the pshat could be as follows. If really the halacha.
Depends if it was hot before Shabbos, you took it off, and now it's Shabbos, you can put it back on.
No. You can't put it back on, but you can heat it. You can heat it up to yatsa lettuce boy, not putting it on because that's not the conditions of chazara. You could put it next to a fireplace. Saying as long as it doesn't look like cooking. We're not going to have time for the second opinion, but the first opinion is as follows: really, ein bishul achar bishul b'chlal. The Rambam is really paskening in bishul achar bishul b'lach. No, he passed like the Rambam, like the Rashba, like the Ran. All those were shining. Ein bishul achar bishul, finished. So, but he doesn't want you to make a mistake between liquids that were never heated and liquids that were heated. I'm saying water that was heated looks the same as water that wasn't heated. How do you make sure that you're only going to reheat liquids that were once heated by saying it has to still be hot from when it was hot? So that way you know that it was hot because was this hot? Yeah. Is it still hot from when it was hot? Yeah. Okay, now you can reheat it. So obviously you're not going to reheat something that was never heated because you're making sure that it's still hot from when it was hot. You understand?
Rabbi, is this soup? Is
Remember.
this Rabbi?
That's shot number one. Shot number two, you'll have to stay in suspense till next Monday night. However, I must also tell you that next Monday night, before we start the shir, we are doing a siyum because there's a thing by Hasidim to do siyumim in the 9 days. So I'm going to do a siyum in Yirtzeh Hashem on Masechet Bava Basra, which we recently finished in the Daf Yomi.
Yes, yesterday.
And I saved some of it for the siyum. So that's next Monday night.
Every night should be a siyum?
Yeah.
Chabad tries to do every night. But
Every person should do every
no. Every person should participate.
Participants.
So that's that. And the Tuesday also, Mirz Hashem. And I wanted to offer, this is up for discussion.
So the following week on Tuesday, we're not going to have a class.
No, the following week is Tisha B'Av. But I wanted to offer, if you guys want, I could come on Sunday night before Tisha B'Av. because we're not going to meet on Monday and Tuesday.
Why Monday?
Or that on Monday then.
Oh, Monday.
Night of Tisha B'Av.
Yeah.
Night of Tisha B'Av. We don't have to decide now. We're going to decide next week. Sorry? Mashiach is coming. We can learn Monday and Tuesday night. Okay, my friends, we'll discuss that more next week. All the best.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Meyer, yes.
Are we discussing that next week? We're supposed to have that class on Sunday.
No, the next Sunday.